For each of the functions below, determine if f of x is written as a sum, a difference, a product, a quotient, or a power. For the purpose of finding the derivative of f, we would need to determine whether it is the sum, difference, product, quotient, or power so that we can use the correct rule, whether it is the sum rule, difference rule, quotient, product, or the power rule. For the first part, we see that if we were to evaluate this expression, we would need to add two terms. And so this is expressed as a sum. Yes, within each term, we see that it is a quotient for the first term, but overall, the big picture, this is the sum. What this means is that if we were to differentiate f, we would need to find the derivative of the first term, where we would use the quotient rule, and for the second term, we would use the difference rule. But again, as the big picture, this is the sum of two terms. For the second part, we see that f of x is the product of two factors. The first one is 6x squared minus 3, and the second one is negative 3x plus 6 over 3x plus 1. This is a product. The third part is a little bit tricky. It is 6e to the x minus 3 plus the quantity 6x squared minus 3. But notice that overall, if we were to evaluate it, we would need to square the result. And so this is something being raised to a power. And so we would need to somehow use the power rule. And again, within each of these sum product power, there might be others. But initially, at the big picture or as the whole, we see that the first one is the sum, the second one is the product, and the third one is a power 2. Recognizing this will help us use the correct rules. And once we proceed to find the derivative using each of these rules, we will need to find the derivative of each of the term, and in each of those terms, we might need to use other shortcuts. We won't find the derivative in this case because we're not asked to do so. We only need to determine whether f of x is written in each of these forms. The way that we determine it is that we pretend that we were to evaluate each of these functions. And so if we were to evaluate the first function, we would need to add two terms. If we were to evaluate the second function, we would need to multiply two factors. And if we would need to evaluate the third function, we would need to evaluate the inside, and then we would raise it to a power 2.